Hello, everybody. I'm Michael,
I'm Koby.
and we are here to talk to you about songwriting.
We sure are.
So I guess a good place to start talking about songwriting is, where do you start a song?
Before we get to that,
Why do you start a song?
How old were you when you wrote your first song?
I don't know, like 10, 11?
Was it any good?
Oh, it's awful.
No.
Your first song was really good?
It's so good. I think I was probably at 10, and I'm pretty sure I rhymed the words none and run, not rum.
None
Run.
and rum would be...
No, it was something about this is my rhyme. I found myself in a race with a nun, but then I won.
Oh, that's like
Yeah, it was a great song. Even my father was like, "That's not a good song."
Do you ever go back and watch or listen to?
No, on purpose
songs?
I avoid it.
I found a songbook of mine from
boy.
when I was 14, and the lyrics are so cringy. It is so cringy. The amount of teenage angst.
But we thought it was so good.
Oh, I was like, I'm so artsy.
I am gonna be a
so good.
songwriter. Now we've done that, so let's talk about writing songs.
Yeah. So I guess.
Michael, why do you write songs?
Why do you write songs?
I asked you first.
All right. Well, it's the most effective tool that I have to communicate.
That's not my reason. That's good.
I've just found that more so than preaching, which you're really good at, more so than
Thanks.
even just conversation. I feel like I can get a point across the best way possible, or share the feeling that I'm feeling the best way possible through music. So
Yeah.
with worship music, it's the most effective tool that I have to share the gospel. So
Totally. I think so. Maybe our reasons aren't. I think the reasons why I like writing songs is looking at. Well, it's having something to say. One, there are lots of good people writing good songs. Just writing a song for the sake of the song might be a great exercise, but not necessarily a necessary one. So I think for me and for us as a church, looking at what people need to be singing that we're not already singing, having something meaningful to be we need to sing this, and so let's write a song about it. So we can't find one. Yeah.
yeah, I think oftentimes people get stuck on where to start. You know.
Yeah.
So before you rudely interrupted me, we were
One more thing. I was kidding.
About where to start a song. And I think what you said, having something to say. The best songs come from inspiration. So that's a hard thing to force, but you can always tell the songs that someone, you're just saying, someone's just writing for the sake of writing it.
Because it's work. What else can I possibly say here? As opposed to I have this idea and now I have a bunch to say about it, so the song comes out of it.
And the ideas end up being disjointed if it's that, because it's all over the place, right? But if you have true inspiration, you will have a good focus in your song. And I think just in life, we go through seasons that are really hard and seasons that are really good, and we go through trials, and those things the Lord uses to shape us, but also those things the Lord uses to give us tools to share hope to others. And I think with songwriting, you can take something that the enemy meant for evil, you can take something that is not good, and you can share hope through that, through how the Lord is shaping you in that season. And I think that's where some of our best songs have come from. It's just from really hard stuff that's happening, and once you come to the other side, you can now share that hope with someone else. So
Yeah, and there's the flip side of that too. Some of those songs come out of hardship. Some of those songs come out of man, this aspect of God stood out to me in such a new way. It comes from that personal place of worship, right? Man, this drew me to worship. So now I'm going to try and package it in a way that I can take other people with me to that same place, right? Out of the hardship and out of the blessing. Those songs kind of rise up.
Yeah, I love that. But I guess on a practical level, people always ask how does the song start? Is it music, or is it?
My dad has asked me that
weird?
15 times.
It's both.
I hope he never watches this video, because it really it's happened so many times. Dad, how do you start a song?
Both.
The answer's always the same.
Yeah, I mean frequently I'll get inspiration for either one of those. Sometimes it's just a phrase, you get a 2-word phrase. We wrote a song recently that hopefully you'll hear sometime, Resurrection Power, was this phrase that kept running through my mind, and it's and then that might be shaped the theme of the song. And like other songs, it's like you kind of just get like this melody idea. But either of those ways, whichever way the inspiration comes, it's so important to just write it down or record it right away. Like I'm sure most
voice memos are your best friend.
Voice memos, like I've got a million voice memos, and I'm so bad at labeling them, so I have to like go through and like listen to all of them.
This one's labeled 22027 17th Avenue. What's this?
But yeah, it's so important to be recording and writing down because we forget so easy.
And be comfortable with your gifting. So like very few people are gifted like Michael to where he can have a good idea as a line or a good idea as a melody. Then there are other people, the commoners like me. I never get a good melody. All of my melodies.
He says he doesn't. He gets them every once in a while.
It's like about as often as someone gets struck by lightning. But I know that like my gifting is in the words. Like my gifting comes out of like when I'm reading scripture, something will pop out. It's like, oh man, that's the idea. And I have to be okay with that because if I was bent on starting it with melody, I'd never start any songs. Right. So our powers combined sometimes kind of get that going.
Makes a good team. I think often also like I even wrote down this phrase, like perfectionism can lead to like procrastination. Especially like in the early days of like starting to write songs, like I wanted them to be so perfect from the start. Yeah. And it would force me to basically never start it because I'm like, that's not good enough. That's not good enough for me. That's not good enough for me. So it's not gonna be good enough for anyone else. And so it would just force me to never start. When in reality, you kind of just have to get just like a rough draft of a paper, or even though I never do rough drafts, I always just submit the first.
But you know that you should.
You know you should. You know how you're supposed to do rough drafts?
Do that.
Do that. Just start. Just start working on a song. And odds are it's probably not going to be great the first time around, especially if it's your first song. And if it is great, then I stand corrected. But I'd bet money if I was a betting man that it like the first time it's not going to be the best song you've ever written. But you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, and I would even say like the more you get into it, and we're by no means experts in this, but like the more you get into it, the more rare you find the first version of any song makes it, right? Like I can't tell you how many songs we've come in, like for me personally, come in like I have this idea for a song and we do it, and then the only thing that makes it is like a line from the chorus.
Or just the idea.
Yeah, and then the whole song gets rebuilt. So like being around other people and making sure like you might have this great idea, and as long as you're willing to hold it with an open hand, like more often than not, very little from the original idea gets kept and everything else kind of gets rebuilt around it, whatever the strongest element was.
Yeah. I think just a couple more things on like the starting process. Like obviously we're writing worship music here, we're talking about writing worship music here, so we have to be in a relationship with Jesus, and we have to be reading our Bibles and praying every day and being in a community of fellow believers that are strengthening you and growing you. That is like so important. And it's also important to like hear like different perspectives within that like relationship with Jesus and community with fellow believers. Like it's important to hear different people's perspectives on different things. Like you can bring a concept from scripture to the table, and someone can speak into that like context around it, and it's just cool because you just get like whole new meanings and words and phrases. And it's only going to help you.
We probably should have let off with that.
Yeah,
that probably should have been the starting point. But that's, I mean, because that's a huge thing, because I think in any sort of communication, whether it's songwriting or preaching or whatever it ends up being, if you are trying to formulate an idea for somebody else, it will always be stale and distant. Like as you write it, it might have a pretty melody, it might have cool thoughts, but it will always be this thing that you're talking about happening. As opposed to like if you are in a walking relationship with the Lord, that relationship's growing, the Lord is doing things in your heart, then you start to write out of things that the Lord is doing in you. And all of a sudden, like that's what makes a song personal, is when it actually is written personally. No song becomes personal because you've decided to make it personal for somebody else. Like it just doesn't work that way, right? So if you're not writing out of what the Lord is doing in you, there will always be a dimension to your song that's missing.
Right. Like you would never have someone else write a love song for you to give to your girlfriend.
Right. Well, I mean, maybe. It's just a bad decision.
Or a love note. A love note. There, that's a better way.
I need you to write a song for my wife, Michael.
I need you to write a love note for my wife, Koby.
Here's what I think.
Make it really personal for me.
Yeah, exactly. Bad ideas. That relationship will not last.
Yeah, no.
And it will be your fault.
Yeah. All your fault. So I guess that's kind of where to start. I hope you get a good idea of some good practices to start writing songs. Basically, just start writing songs. That's
Yeah. And don't hold on to them too tight. Like, write the song, play the song for people. Don't convince yourself it's a good song if everyone around you is telling you it's a bad song. Like, it's okay to write bad songs.
Yes.
It's okay to write a bad song and call it a bad song and move on. It's fine.
Yeah. Walk humbly into those rooms. Like, always be willing to have your idea shot down. Always be willing to hear the better idea and accept that it is a better idea.
Yeah.
Because there's always going to be better ideas.
And the arrogant person doesn't get written with.
Yeah.
Right? The person who's not willing to make adjustments or change, like that person doesn't get written with. It's the person who's willing to walk in with an open hand and go, I think this is good. Can we make it better?
That's a good thing to just bring through your entire life, though. Like, the arrogant person just doesn't, like, people just don't want to hang out with.
Yeah.
So it's just walk humbly in general, and especially in songwriting.
Last thing that I can think of is just what we alluded to is writing with people. We didn't talk about that. Like, did we talk about that? I don't think so.
No, but we can talk about that like more in like the process part of it.
Oh, we've got a whole nother part of this.
Yeah.
Sweet deal. All right, well, I'll save that for that.
See you in a second.